Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renton here, host of the Raiders Report. And today's mailbag, we're going to do it a little bit different. I went on my Instagram, at MitchellRentz365. If you don't already follow me, please make sure you give me a follow. And I put out a questionnaire, and I said, give me your best questions for today's show. I'm going to say this, a lot of Joe Burrow questions. So if you don't already know, we will be live noon Eastern time on Sunday when the Raiders go up against the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to be battling our Philadelphia channel, so I hope you guys pull up, because growing up in central Pennsylvania, growing up in the 570, I got a lot of friends that are Eagles fans. Honestly, most of them are my groomsmen. And this game means a lot to me. So if you could, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you get ready, because we probably won't win on the field. At least I hope not. We better beat our Eagles channel, though, here at Chat Sports. Let's go to the very first question. Rolling in here, it's from Nathaniel Gonzalez. What do you think about Joe Burrow to the Raiders? I saw what Dan Orlovsky said about there should be, I think it was like 3 teams. It was the Vikings, it was the Raiders. I don't remember the other team that should be showing interest in Joe Burrow. Who? And the Jets. I know Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. This just continues to be a question that I get over and over again, especially over the past week, because Burrow does look frustrated. Heck, I just saw a video about Jamar Chase saying that he thought the interview with Burrow, and if you didn't see what he had to say, we'll show you here in a little bit. I have the graphic for it. But Jamar Chase literally thought that what he said was AI generated, and you know, Burrow kind of made it sound like he didn't know if he wanted to retire. He didn't know if he really wanted to, stick with this thing out with Cincinnati, or if he wanted to be dealt. And there were multiple NFL teams that called the Cincinnati Bengals about Joe Burrow after hearing the statement that he made. But, we know Burrow's talented. I believe if you told me right now we could turn injuries off Madden style, Burrow is without a doubt, in my book, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. The problem is, though, he's been getting the shit kicked out of him behind a bad offensive line in Cincinnati, and also he has been injury-prone since entering the NFL. You can't tell me otherwise. So before I give you guys my answer on whether or not I would want the Raiders to go out and trade for Joe Burrow, this is going to be the ad break on today's program, which means you're about to get it with the YouTube ad break. Scroll on down, answer this question. Type T for trade, type P for pass. Do you want the Raiders to trade for Joe Burrow? If it's actually a chance that you can get him, I think that you're crazy not to want to trade for Joe Burrow. Now, I would have to do my due diligence and be like, hey, are you actually motivated to be able to ride this thing out? Because these statements made it seem, kind of very similar, like you could be thinking about retiring. I've seen people put some ideas out there of how much it would potentially cost to go get Burrow. If it doesn't involve Max Crosby, and if it doesn't involve, multiple, all your picks, because I actually would wonder if it would take all your picks in the next 3 drafts to go get them. If it wouldn't cost that, I would entertain the idea of going out and getting Joe Burrow. And that's even me coming from a guy that wants to draft a quarterback. But Joe Burrows don't grow on trees. And I would love to get Joe Burrow here with the Raiders. Let's go to another question here. This one's coming in from Daniel Moore. What do you think about Diego Pavia as a quarterback? Diego Pavia is this generation's Johnny Manziel. He's not nearly as talented, but man, he's electric. He's so fun to watch out there. But he also kind of reminds me a little bit of a Tim Tebow, where some guys are just really good college quarterbacks. And Pavia is a great leader. He's done unbelievable things for the University of Vanderbilt, and I do believe that Vanderbilt is going to start going in the right direction in the SEC, and that's going to be a program that is getting a lot better. Very similar to, again, Texas A&M, Johnny Manziel style. But Pavia in the NFL, he's just not good enough as a passer. In all honesty, this person gets brought up a lot, and he's been brought up a lot on this show. And I always hear, could they play a Taysom Hill type role? If there was ever maybe a quarterback that I would look at and say, hey, could you be a tush-push QB? Could you play a Taysom Hill type role where you're going to get 2 to 3 runs a game to try to pick up a first down, and you might throw a ball? That's Diego Pavia to me. But he's a fun player. I root for him. I would have no interest in his being a every down quarterback for any NFL team. Let's go to Juan. What up, Juan? Would you be opposed to the idea of the Raiders drafting Dante Moore? I like Dante Moore. He is my number 2 quarterback behind Fernando Mendoza. And if you're the Raiders, to me, if you're at pick number 1, you have a different bunch of different options. And if you didn't see my video where I break down all of the Raiders draft plans, I put it out, I want to say that would have been on Wednesday. Go check it out. I do like Dante more. I don't think he has the ceiling of Fernando Mendoza, but there's not many quarterbacks that I think have the safe floor that Moore has. Very intelligent quarterback, a pure passer, has it up here. I would like the idea of getting Dante Moore. I wouldn't like it as much as Mendoza, but if we came out with the 2026 NFL draft and you told me Dante Moore's our quarterback, I'm going to be feeling pretty good about the direction of our team. Now, if you do not know, today's show is sponsored and operated by Prize Picks, and you can get $50 when you play 5 down there at prizepicks.com/CLNS. And I am going to show you my lineup for Raiders-Eagles today because that is a game that's going to be ending up going down tomorrow. It's a big-time game, and if you're like, Mitch, I'm not going to watch the game. I got nothing to root for. Well, I'll give you a lineup here, and I'll give you something to root for because at this point of the Raiders season, with college football here, with just playoff pushes getting close, I am going to be somebody that's going to sit up here, and I'm getting my lineups in. And I've had a lot of success recently going less on Raiders and going more on the opposing team. So this is a $10 to pay $50. It is a flex play, and that's one of the things that I love about Prize Picks. You can go power play, you can go flex play. It's really up to you how you want to do it. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to be able to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. And I'm looking there at Genty. I don't like to go less on it. Brock Bowers, I don't like to go less on it. But to me, this is going to be a cold weather game. I believe it's going to be in the 20s and 30s. I see a lot of Saquon Barkley, and I see the Philadelphia Eagles getting a win on Sunday. Let's go to another question coming in here from Marcus. Get a pick. Do you think Burrow could pull an Andrew Luck? I mean, I was literally just talking about this, and I would hope not. And what's crazy is I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of the Scott Fish Bowl, but many, many years ago before I started doing the Raiders Report, I was in the fantasy football world, and I got invited to do the Scott Fish Bowl. It's the largest fantasy football bracket tournament, whatever you want to call it, on the planet. There's thousands of teams in it. It's crazy if you've never heard of it. It all goes towards charity. Scott Fish has done an amazing job. Scott, I don't know if you remember me, but I got the utmost love for you. But I remember there was a 2-quarterback league. I drafted Andrew Luck, and then like a few days later, he ends up retiring from the NFL at 29 years old. He's very young. The reason why you're asking me this question is because this is what Joe Burrow said to the media on December 10th. If I want to keep doing this, then what am I trying to do with myself? And I have to have fun doing it, you know? If it's not fun, then what am I doing it for? So that's the mindset. And you know, you're talking about a quarterback that's making $50, $60 million plus a year, that is the face of that franchise, that, you know, and what am I doing it for? I would like to believe you're doing it for the love of the game and also millions upon millions of dollars. I mean, let's face it, if Joe Burrow stopped playing football, there would be other avenues for him, probably in fashion, based on a lot of the things that my wife tells me. Like, he's a very prominent figure in the fashion industry. What do you say? Modeling would be something that Burrow would get paid to do. But I also am like, and maybe money doesn't mean everything to certain people. It doesn't mean everything to me. But to turn down that amount of money, you got to really hate something. And for that thought process to even be going through Joe Burrow's mind, I've been somebody up here before where I've said I would give up every single draft pick that the Raiders have the next 3 years for Joe Burrow, because I would do it. Because if you can get a quarterback like that, I do really think it can transform your entire franchise. But that statement now makes me not want to say that, because when you have a statement like that, and I know before on this show I've said oh, Joe Burrow's 8, 9, 10 first-round picks. When that statement comes out, his trade value is dropped. And the reason why multiple NFL teams called is because a statement like that, people probably got to wonder, is it a Joe Burrow problem or is it a Cincinnati Bengals problem? And I would at least pick up the phone if I was John Spytek and Tom Brady, and I think that Tom Brady would be able to sell a guy like Joe Burrow, because if Joe Burrow wants to be the greatest of all time, you put him in a room with Tom Brady, and I think good shit's going to happen. Let's go to Kyle Snyder. You're next up here on the program. What are some of the offensive linemen in free agency that the Raiders could sign? So I know a few names that I've thrown out there before for the Raiders. Like, if they're going to tell me that JPJ is going to be not a center again, right? If they're going to tell me that, well, then I'm going to sit up here. I'm going to go Tyler Lindenbaum would be a great center option that I think that you can consider. Brandon Smith is another offensive tackle that you could potentially consider. I'm looking up here the top free agents in the offensive line for 2026, so please forgive me. Because to me, I'm thinking about right now where the Raiders are at. And right now where the Raiders are at, in my personal opinion, is you're going to have Colton Miller be your left tackle. Center is going to end up being JPJ. Like, that's what it has to be. Then between your other offensive lineman pieces, between DJ Glaze, Charles Grant, and Caleb Rogers, one of those three guys got to fill another starting position. Could you look at Isaac Samalu, an offensive guard? That was somebody that I liked, if you all remember, before when he was playing with the Philadelphia Eagles. You could go a multitude of different ways. Like, there are good players in free agency. Elijah Vera Tucker would be a name that I would consider. Like, to me, you have to spend big on the offensive line of free agency, and whatever you think the best combination of players is to get you that best offensive line combo, because you can't go into the NFL draft without your starting 5 offensive line solidified, in my opinion. And with $115 million, you're going to be able to do it. But another route I would go is potentially trades, and I will do a lot of videos this offseason on the offensive line. Let's go to Oscar. You're next up here, man. If you were able to pick the first 3 picks for the Raiders, what would you do? So to me, I'm going to go Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore with the quarterback selection. The only other way that I would consider doing anything different is if, let's say we have the number 1 overall pick, I trade back to number 2 to get even more draft capital. But if we're just saying first round, second round, third round, I'm taking a quarterback in round 1. That, to me, is the best recipe for success for this team moving forward. And because I'm spending all that money in free agency on the offensive line, I'm looking at defensive tackle and I'm looking at edge. Because if you can't win in the trenches, you're not going to win many football games. So to me, I'm going quarterback, and then I'm going defensive line. Whether that's DT, edge, however you want to do it, second and third round, that's where I'm going to put my draft capital, because that's what this team needs. Let's go to Daniel Reber. What's up, man? Hey, Mitch, I keep hearing that Joe Burrow says that the Bengals front office doesn't like him and he might get traded. How many first-round picks do you think it would take to get him? So first off, appreciate this question, and this also was a DM that I received on Instagram. So again, if you guys don't think I check my DMs, I really do try to do it on a weekly basis. It was a lot easier for me this past week because my wife, she was not in town. But, like when I get home, she doesn't want me on my phone. She wants me hanging out with her, and we've been watching a lot of Stranger Things recently. So what I told Chugs and what I told some of the other guys here, I was like, give me some past trades to be able to base my answer off of. And you could look at the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff trade, but I don't really see us having a quarter. Like, maybe you could say that's Aiden O'Connell. Ship Aiden O'Connell away to Cincinnati. Aiden O'Connell ain't Jared Goff. Right now, Jared Goff has done a lot better than I think even Los Angeles thought, but the Rams ended up winning a Super Bowl, so they're the winner here in this trade. The Deshaun Watson trade. They gave up 2 firsts, a third, and a fourth. 3 firsts, excuse me. Sorry, I didn't see the 22. 3 first-round picks. Like, to me, if you're going to trade away Joe Burrow, I believe it looks way, way closer to something like this, and I think it's going to be way more than something like that. What about this is a Bengals-Vikings trade idea that our Minnesota Vikings host put out. And again, it's because Dan Orlovsky mentioned Minnesota as being a team that should call them, and he said Jonathan Grenard, who's one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. I mean, that's basically Max Crosby. I know Max means more to us than Grenard probably means to Minnesota, but from a talent standpoint, Grenard's not Crosby, but that's a high-level type of player right there. J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback they just drafted at number 9 overall, and then another first and a third and another first and a second. That amount of draft capital is an extreme amount of draft capital. So to me, I don't want Max Crosby involved. And if you're going to trade for Joe Burrow, I want to be able to keep our offensive pieces together. So here's my offer to Cincinnati. 3 first-round picks, 2026, 2027, 2028. And some people are going to go, wow, Mitch, you're going to give up. Right now, we're at pick number 2. If we end up with the number 1 overall pick, this does change. So I want to be very clear on that. But I do think it costs you 3 first-round picks. I think it costs you 3 second-round picks, because the other thing that we got to sell Joe Burrow on is that this is going to be an organization that's going to be able to win with them, and that we're going to be able to build an offensive line. That's a tough thing. I'll also throw in Tyree Wilson. I'll throw in DJ Glaze, and I'll throw in Michael Mayer. Again, I don't even know what this costs. To me, I feel like you're asking me, Mitch, how much does it cost to buy Bigfoot? I have no idea. How much does it cost to buy a unicorn? I have absolutely positively no idea. How much does it cost to trade for Joe Burrow, a unicorn Bigfoot? Here's my best guess for the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's go to Luis. What's up, Luis? If the Raiders don't get the first pick, will they draft a quarterback? If they're at pick number 2, my answer is still going to be yes to this. But if the Raiders do not have the number 1 overall pick, I do think you have to still consider potentially trading up, or you end up trading back, and then you do one of my plans like I mentioned in my video on Wednesday, where you go out and you trade for a Cam Ward. You go out and you trade for a Jalen Milroe. And that's kind of the route that I would go about it. But if they don't have the number 1 overall pick, I'm going to lose my mind. And I've had a lot of crash outs on this show throughout the years. I really, truly believe that it would be one of my biggest crash outs of all time. It would. It would be one of my biggest crash outs of all time. Let's go to Nico's. Would you make Mendoza sit a year behind Kenny Pickett or Aiden O'Connell? If I was the one running the ship, the answer to this would be no, because the only possible way that you would even consider doing something like this is if you did a shit job in free agency and didn't build your offensive line. Again, to me, there's no option. Like, there's no way on planet Earth that I'm walking out of free agency without a top 5, top 12 potential offensive line. I'm going to spend my money. Whether that means I got to trade picks, whether that means I got to go sign people, I'm coming away from this offseason with a top 10 offensive line. Kenny Pickett's a free agent, so there's no need to bring him back. And then Aiden O'Connell is a good enough backup quarterback. So to me, no, I'm not sitting Mendoza behind Kenny Pickett or Aiden O'Connell, because our offensive line is going to be a top 10 offensive line unit, and that is a good, with Genty, with Bowers, with the players that we have, Mendoza is light years better than Kenny Pickett and Aiden O'Connell, in my personal opinion. So if you guys do not know, Week 15, big matchup. Raiders against the Eagles. I did see a question right before I started filming this from Nico Laz that was like, how nervous are you about this game? I'm very nervous. I know that the Eagles, the last time that I checked, are still like 11.5-point favorites in this one. But like, Philadelphia has been struggling offensively. Philadelphia has been turning the ball over. And if the Raiders and Eagles play each other and there's no turnovers, the Eagles win 10 out of 10 times. But if they turn the ball over 2 or 3 times and the Raiders get some lucky bounces in a really shitty weather game, it does make me nervous. But reminder, I am going to be live noon Eastern time, 1 hour before kickoff. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notifications are turned on. And if you're going to get mad at me, I'm rooting for the Raiders to get the number 1 overall pick.